Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Chronic Chronicles. I'm your host, Lexy, and today we're diving into something that affects many of us, PCOS, aka Polycystic Ovary Syndrome. It's a condition that is talked about a lot, but also still so misunderstood, especially when it comes to the different types and root causes of PCOS. Did you know that there's different types of PCOS? I did not until very recently, which is kind of interesting. Today, I want to walk you through not just the science, but also my lived experience, what it's actually like to have PCOS, navigate the symptoms, the diagnosis process, the lifestyle shifts, and everything in between. For me, PCOS has been a diagnosis that I have really struggled to come to terms with. I honestly did not agree with my doctor when I first got diagnosed because I didn't really understand what PCOS was and that it could come in different shapes and sizes. For me, I have metabolic PCOS and I was diagnosed based off of the hormonal issues that accompany PCOS. I actually have only ever had a couple of cysts on my ovaries, typically on my left ovary, but I think I've only had two that I've, seen on ultrasounds. I might have had more than that, but I'm not really sure. I mostly struggle with the hormonal side effects of PCOS, like insulin resistance. And I feel like because when you think of PCOS, you think of polycystic ovaries, right? You think of a lot of cysts in your ovaries. And that was what I thought PCOS was. When I got diagnosed with it, I was just like, I don't match the criteria. That doesn't fit me. So I kind of just ignored it and didn't think that I really had it. Before we get into the meat of the episode, I do want to take a minute just to chat with you. Welcome to season 2. This is episode 3. I'm pumped. I don't know. I feel like I haven't really talked to you one-on-one in a while, just about life and life updates and everything that's been going on. I mean, if you follow me on Instagram, then you probably know my life updates anyways, because I feel like I post 1,000 stories in a day and like every internal thought that has ever popped into my brain, which I should probably not share every thought, but I definitely do. Anyways, I wanted to chat for a minute. I have been trying to lean into my business owner era recently. Well, technically, I've owned a business for a few years. Shout out Coastline Chic Designs. If you don't know, that is my small business, my OG small business, I should say. But also, this podcast is a subset of my business. This is technically part of my LLC. I still work a full-time job outside of that. I work from home, but I try to commit 10 to 15 hours a week on my business endeavors, like outside of my normal work hours, obviously. But it has been increasingly harder to do recently because my mental health has just been a roller coaster. I started going back to therapy about 6 weeks ago, and I hadn't been in therapy for a while. I have been in and out of therapy, since I was like 4 years old. Childhood trauma, slay. But in and out of therapy, and I honestly just never have really felt like therapy helped me that much. Not that I don't think therapy helps. I just for some reason I never really wanted to do it. I just felt like I needed to do it, so I would. But I feel like maybe I wasn't in the mindset to let it help me. I'm not really sure. But despite that, I've been back in therapy for like 6 weeks, and something that my therapist has been like telling me a lot is that I rationalize my feelings a lot. Like I will come into our therapy sessions and I'll be like, this is the way that I'm feeling, and then in the same sentence be like, well, I know why I'm feeling this way. It's because of this, and okay, and then I move on. And for some reason in my brain, I think that like once I rationalize it, I should be able to just move on from it. And that's where I'm like really struggling is that I don't move on from it. Like I rationalize it, but then I don't know what the next step is. And it's almost like my therapist says that I like invalidate my feelings by doing that. Anyways, a work in progress. I'll let you know how all of that is going. The point of that is that my mental health has been a roller coaster. I feel like half of the month I'm okay and I'm happy and everything in my life is like really good and I feel really good about everything. I'm like, okay, things are going well. Everything's going well. I'm happy and healthy. And then the other half of the month, I feel completely out of control of my emotions. I've been like really back in my like symptom tracking era, I guess. is there a different word for era that I could say so I don't say era all the time, but whatever. I've been back into symptom tracking and really to try to track my mental health stuff and a couple of other things. Vertigo, we've been dealing with like some other things going on, but the mental health is the biggest thing. And I've kind of noticed that it's really like half the month I'm okay and half the month I'm like, I don't feel like I feel like everything is doom. I feel like everything in my life is bad. I don't have any friends. My significant other doesn't love me. I'm not going anywhere in life. And it's just like complete opposite. And I have just been really feeling out of control. So, but tracking those symptoms and trying to figure out, okay, like, does this coincide with my cycle? Is this hormonal? I'm not sure. I also feel like the weather does, I've been tracking the weather with my emotions as well recently because it was like sunny and beautiful like all of April and I felt very, very happy most of that time. And then it got like dreary and cloudy and rainy for the past 2 weeks and I've been like, everything sucks in life. So I've also been putting down like kind of what the weather is. 'Cause I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. I don't know. Despite that, I have been trying to make a huge effort on putting hours in every single day to both my business goals and my personal health goals. And when I started this podcast, I knew that I wanted to do more with this platform than only creating a podcast. And I don't say that in like I don't say that lightly. I don't mean like, oh, a podcast isn't enough. Like that's not what I'm saying. I just knew when I started this that I wanted the podcast to be first and I wanted to hone in on this and create a community. And then I wanted to also include other forms of media as well and other things. And I knew that once I got a handle on all of this, I didn't know how long it would take. It's been a year and I'm feeling like, okay, I can start, moving into other things that I wanted to do while still like really honing in on the podcast and making this like my priority. But I wanted to create a brand with it. And that brand is the Chronic Collective. And under this Chronic, I probably shouldn't announce this yet because it's not even close to being ready, but whatever. There's more that goes into it. But the Chronic Collective, and then under it have the Chronic Chronicles and other things that I will launch when they are ready. But that is the first main thing. And the podcast has been my baby. And I love it. And I love you guys. And I appreciate you guys. And I feel like I'm always just like mushy and telling you how much I love you, but like it's true. So I've been working on a secret project for about a year now. Literally, actually, before I even started, it's been more than a year. It's been a year and a half. Before I even started the podcast, I've been working on this secret project and slowly getting closer to be able to show you guys like what that is and what it looks like. I'm really excited about it and also like really nervous. Either way, I think it'll be helpful for the community. Outside of that, I've been taking time 3 or 4 times a week to go on a longer walk, which if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen them, but it normally includes, I live about a mile away from my favorite coffee shop. So I'll take like this nature trail, walk to my favorite coffee shop, get a coffee, and then walk back. And sometimes the nature trail actually like goes longer. So sometimes I'll take a longer walk, like I'll walk a mile, get a coffee, keep walking, and then walk home, which has been really nice, especially when it is sunny out. So I would like it to stay sunny in Washington, please. Thank you. But I have really been trying, like normally on my lunch break, I'll do that. I'll take like an hour to do that walk. Basically, I'm rewarding myself by getting a cup of coffee because, I actually don't have enough willpower to just make myself go walk for an hour. Walking for an hour is actually like kind of boring. Luckily, there's some pretty entertaining podcasts or something to listen to. Or I do like a phone call with somebody, like a family member. The point is, that is one of my big personal health goals that I've been really trying to touch on is going on longer walks, which, like I said, normally includes a reward, which is a coffee. And honestly, walking and the sun has really been helping my mental health and keeping me from having a MTB. We'll get into this, but like one of the main reasons that I'm going on these longer walks, I'm trying to hit 10,000 steps a day, which is a basic health goal to reach. It's really important with insulin resistance is these like walks and walking after lunch and keeping your digestion moving So that is why that's like why it's such a big personal health goal of mine is to like be going on these walks after lunch or like doing my long walk at that point. But then after like breakfast and after dinner, I'll go outside and do like a 10-minute walk. Not a long walk, but just a walk, trying to make sure that everything is like continuing to move. And going on these longer walks or walking after you're eating, even if it's not long, really helps balance your blood sugar, which in turn helps balance your insulin and helps your insulin resistance from your PCOS, my PCOS, anyways. We'll get into that, but that's why that goal exists. I've also started working with a dietitian to try to get a handle on my nutrition goals, which, as if you've been following me and on this podcast for a while, you know that I've talked a lot about wanting to really hone in on like anti-inflammatory diets. I hate the word diet, but like I don't know what else to call it. Anti-inflammatory nutrition, anti-inflammatory foods. I have looked at the AIP protocol diet before, but that is just super intense for me. And I have a really hard time sticking to things long term. I can do anything for like a week, 2 weeks, maybe even a month. But after that, it's really hard for me to stick to things. It feel like extreme things like that. Like I need smaller bite-sized chunks. And so I've tried to not do the full AIP, but just do anti-inflammatory and like slowly reduce sugar, slowly reduce dairy, increase protein, increase fiber. But I've been struggling to do that by myself. So I've started seeing a dietitian just to help me get a handle on these goals. I just feel like I have so many things going on in my brain that it's like too hard for me to do this stuff by myself. These nutrition goals are like directly associated with my weight gain issues because of my PCOS and my insulin resistance. So this all like ties into this episode. And I, of course, will update you on the progress of that and like what I learn as I go. So stay tuned for that. I've been seeing this, I think I had my third appointment will be next week, and we're going to actually start talking about like meal planning and actual like ideas for meals because that I know like what I need to do. I really struggle with like what foods I'm actually supposed to eat. Meals. I need help actually planning what to eat. So I'll let you guys know how that goes. And let me know, like in the comments of this episode, if you're on Spotify, you can leave a comment. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can also leave a comment or go to Instagram and leave a comment on this post about this podcast and just let me know if you want me to like upload my meal plans for every week that I get from my dietitian. Let me know because I'm totally happy to do that for you guys and we can do it together. What else is new? We have a wedding in a couple of weeks in Michigan, but other than that, the summer is looking like relatively open, which is a nice change in comparison to last summer. And honestly, overall, this past year, we have been traveling so much, usually to Michigan for weddings, which is lovely. And I love that. But also, all of our PTO and all of our money is going to weddings. So it's going to be nice just to have like the summer to be here. And which is weird for me to say because I love traveling, but I feel like I can really lock into my goals over the next few months because we're going to be home. So I'm really excited for that. I also wanted to let you know that I have lots of giveaways happening all month to celebrate 1 year of the Chronic Chronicles. One of them is happening right now. They're just going to be happening consistently all month. So don't miss out. Go follow the Instagram at Chronic Chronicles Pod and get in on all these giveaways. It's literally free things, free items that I use all the time for you. Oh, and if I haven't mentioned it yet, I have a Discord channel now. I took over it from another podcast, Chronically Chill. I'm not sure if you followed them, but they had a Discord channel that they gave to me, which has a lot of information on it. Tons of different sections of the channel with like pretty much any illness or hobby you could think of that you can talk about that. You can ask questions and community. We also are starting a virtual book club through the Discord channel, and I'll leave a link to all of this in the show notes. You can come hang out with me once a month in a virtual book club, which will be really fun. So the first one I think is end of June. So if you want to be involved in that, join the Discord. I also started slash am starting with this episode a Substack, which I'm very, very new to that platform. On the Substack, it does have every single podcast episode as well. I'm that will like link you to listen somewhere else, I think. It also will have with every science-backed episode, like this one specifically, this is a solo episode about PCOS and the science behind it. These types of episodes will also have a Substack blog post link, which is basically a summarized version of this episode and like the highlights of the science. So you can go read that if you would like more, just more summarized information that's like written out. And then at the bottom, it'll also have like a series of research articles that I read to prepare for this episode with more information for you to read. So it's just a little bit more summarized blog science. I will also link the Substack in this as well. Okay. That all being said, let's do a little weekly report. We haven't done one of these in a long time. So, okay. Report. R is for reading. Right now I'm reading Deeper Than Money by Chloe Elise, I think is her name. She also has a podcast. I listen to her Deeper Than Money podcast as well, but I have gotten back into reading recently. So I went to my local library and I found this book and I was like, ooh, I listened to this podcast. I'm going to read her book. So it's pretty good. I'm like a quarter of the way through. So reading that. E is for eating. I'm trying to increase my protein and fiber, which honestly is a little bit easier than I thought it would be. Protein coffee has been a kind of a game changer for getting more protein in the morning. I really struggle to eat breakfast. I'm just not hungry. So I buy like the Fairlife chocolate protein shakes. I think it's like 26 grams of protein in every shake. And I put that over ice with a double shot of espresso. It's really good. I should eat breakfast with that, but most of the time I don't. I just drink that, and at least I'm getting 26 grams of protein. So try that if you are struggling with protein intake in the morning. And then also, watermelon season is approaching, and I love watermelon. I love a good watermelon. Yum. I'm getting excited for that. P is for playing. I've said this before, but I'm getting more into golf. I'm getting slowly better, slowly better. Sometimes it hurts my back a little bit though, so I have to be careful like how aggressive I am with it. Definitely getting more into golf. I've been doing the driving range quite a bit with my friends and with my boyfriend, and then I think this weekend we're going to go to a par 3 course, which is basically just like a shorter holes that have shorter distances on it. So that will be fun. O is for obsessing. I'm obsessed with morning walks to my favorite coffee shop. I really am. These walks I love where I live. This is so nice. And I am obsessed with that. Like, walk to your favorite coffee shop. You will not regret it. I promise you. R is for recommending. I'm recommending a good spring cleaning. Spring clean your closet, spring clean your junk drawer, which is what I'm actually doing this weekend. We're going to work on we have many junk drawers. We shouldn't, but we do. So that is what I'm going to be working on for my spring cleaning this weekend. But open those windows, spring clean it up. T is for treating. This is kind of stupid, but I'm treating myself to a car wash. I need a car wash. I'm also saving up to get my car detailed right now. It's like $200 to go get it detailed. And I'm slowly saving up for that because that just sounds like such a nice, scrumdiddlyumptious treat to myself. I've never had my car detailed before, and let me tell you, there's coffee spillage in this car. There is coffee spilled all over, and there's cat hair because somehow my cat is never in my car, but it's in my car. I must track it with me. I'm not sure. But a nice detail. I'm so excited for when I finally save up enough for that. Like, so excited. But in the meantime, a $15 car wash, treat yourself to that. Your car will be looking all sparkly and pretty. Let's get into it, guys. Let's get into the meat of this episode. About 2 years ago, I got diagnosed with endometriosis. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. About 2 years ago, I got diagnosed with PCOS. I think it was like, technically, maybe it's like early 2023 is when I got diagnosed with PCOS. It was towards the end of grad school for me, right before I moved out to Washington. And honestly, it wasn't really like a big diagnosis. I was kind of confused. I was like, wait, did I get diagnosed with PCOS or like did she just mistakenly say that? My gynecologist just like offhandedly said, oh, like it looks like you're getting insulin resistance from your PCOS. And I was like, wait a minute, I, I have PCOS? And she was like, well, yes. And that was kind of how I was diagnosed, which was really confusing to me because I didn't know if I actually had it or not. And then I really just didn't ask any more questions that day because I was confused. I also didn't really know what insulin resistance was. So I should have, like, that's kind of on me. I should have asked more questions. I think I was just kind of thrown off because we were talking about endo and other like symptoms related to endo. And I just was like, wait, what is happening? Looking back, some of the earliest signs were things that I truly did not connect to PCOS at the time. I didn't have a ton of cysts. I've technically, that I know of, I've had two, like seen on ultrasound. Now that I know that I have it, like I probably have had more. I've always had a lot of pain on where my left ovary would be. So I'm wondering if I've had cyst rupture before and I just haven't really realized it. And people, I feel like I say that and people are going to be like, how would you not know that it ruptured? But I mean, I have endometriosis and I have chronic pain. So I just think maybe I just wouldn't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy for saying that. I'm not sure. But I have had pretty substantial pain on my left ovary quite a few times. And the two cysts that we have seen on ultrasound were on my left ovary. So I'm wondering if there's just something going on with that little bugger over there. It wasn't just the cysts. My periods have always been irregular. They've always been super unpredictable. They've always been, I mean, prior to IUDs, I would bleed for weeks at a time, really, really heavily, and then I wouldn't bleed for a while. And then sometimes I would almost get my period twice in a month, and then I would go like a month and a half without one. They were just very irregular, very unpredictable. I have endometriosis, so I just didn't really bring it out. I mean, I brought these things up, but I didn't bring it up outside of like when we were talking about endometriosis. I also started really noticing really intense sugar cravings, although I kind of have always craved sugar. Like I've always just, I used to literally tell my parents and my grandparents that I couldn't finish my dinner. Like I was full, I couldn't finish my dinner, but then I had a second stomach for dessert because my grandpa would be like, "Oh, you didn't finish your dinner, you can't have ice cream." And I'd be like, "Papa, I have a second stomach. I'm good. I can eat the ice cream." So yeah, I've just kind of always had sugar cravings, but I have noticed that it has gotten worse as I've gotten older. I almost have like like this is gonna sound crazy, but I have like emotional reactions to sugar, and I kind of always have. It's not to caffeine, it's to sugar. Like if I drink a Mountain Dew at 7 p.m., I've always had this. I can remember in high school where I would have these like giddy, like slap happy laughing fits after consuming too much sugar. It's not like I would get like stomach aches, like that type of stuff. It's like it literally would like elicit some weird emotional response. And I still get them. If I have too much sugar, like Mountain Dew and like chocolate and ice cream or something like, or like cake, like something like that, then I literally have like a slap happy giddy, like sugar rush type thing, which is interesting because I actually don't know that many people that have reactions like that, but I do. To the point where my boyfriend and I have been together for a long time and he knows this about me. Like it's a real thing that happens to me. And he will be like, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't have that much sugar right now. Like we're gonna go to bed soon." And because I'll have a sugar rush and then I'll have a sugar crash. Sometimes I will literally have a sugar rush and then my crash is so bad that I like have an emotional response. Like I cry, which is really kind of embarrassing to say out loud. Let me know if anyone else has that or like what that is. I'm not 100% sure if that fully relates to PCOS, but there are people with PCOS symptoms that do have really intense sugar cravings as well. So that's why I'm bringing it up. I also started noticing really, really bad fatigue that wouldn't go away no matter how much I slept, and breakouts that just don't quit. I never really had like cystic acne per se, but I do have like breakouts, which is weird. I didn't really have breakouts growing up, but I had them in my 20s, and I still kind of get them. Normally when I break out, it is around like my chin or my jawline, which I later learned can be tied to androgens, which we'll get into later in this episode, but PCOS. I also have slash had that frustrating feeling of just not feeling like myself in my body, which we talked a lot about 2 episodes ago, but my weight has been really hard to manage these past couple of years. Even when I really do think I eat relatively healthy, and I can remember thinking that something just feels off hormonally, but no one was really listening to me. Honestly, anytime I would bring any of this stuff up, my doctors would just be like, well, you have endo. So, yeah, you're tired. Yeah, you're gaining weight. Yeah, your hormones are messed up. And no one really mentioned anything else or said that it could be anything else. So, I mean, I continually brought it up, but I also would be like, okay, maybe it is just all endo. I also didn't think that you could have endo and PCOS at the same time, but you can. It took years to get a diagnosis for this. I was already struggling with endometriosis and in and out of doctors' offices for that. So when I mentioned other things like fatigue, acne, weight changes, irregular periods, like I said, they just chalked it up to endo or told me that it was stress or anxiety and that my stress and anxiety are causing me to have more symptoms. I've always felt like there was more to the story, but I couldn't get the point across to my doctors enough, I guess. Like I said, I finally got the diagnosis for PCOS in 2023, but even then, it just wasn't explained well. No one sat me down and said, here, no one sat me down and said, here, you have PCOS. This is why you have PCOS. These are the types of PCOS, and here's how we treat the root causes. It was more like your labs look off, looks like insulin resistance from PCOS, and that was really it. So I didn't just have to get diagnosed, I had to understand what PCOS actually meant for me. And that took a lot longer, essentially these last 2 years. This is a really good spot to highlight the complexity of living with both PCOS and endo, especially since many people assume that they're the same or they're mutually exclusive or that you can't have both, which, I was the person that thought you couldn't have both. Having both endo and PCOS is like living in hormonal chaos. One condition is estrogen dominant, endo, and the other condition is driven by androgens or insulin resistance, PCOS. And my body just feels like it's quite literally getting pulled in two opposite directions, and I can't get a handle on it. I just truly don't feel like I am in control of all of these things happening within my body. And these symptoms overlap in a lot of like really frustrating ways: fatigue, bloating, painful periods, gut issues. So it's really hard to tell what's causing what. And sometimes I wonder if providers only focus on one condition at a time. I've had to advocate for myself just to get both taken seriously. And honestly, I'm still struggling with that. I'm struggling to understand the difference and to get my doctors to help me understand the difference. This has been an ongoing struggle, but plus, I can understand from a treatment perspective that it's really tricky. A lot of traditional advice for PCOS is like go on birth control, cut carbs, lose weight. But with endo, those aren't always helpful or even possible. I've had to personalize everything to find what works for my body. And again, still trying to figure it out. This episode is not me telling you I got it all figured out. Here's what you should do. It's really just like empathizing with you and explaining my journey thus far, plus the science behind. Also, I have an additional factor that makes treatment for both really difficult. So it's just tricky. I can sympathize with my providers on like why it's been tricky to treat it, but it's still frustrating for, I'm sure, both of us. Let's zoom out for a minute because I think we throw the term PCOS around a lot without actually understanding what it is. First off, PCOS stands for Polycystic Ovary Syndrome, but you don't actually need to have cysts on your ovaries to have PCOS. That alone trips a lot of people up, as it did for me as well. It's not just about ovaries with cysts. It's a syndrome, not a disease, and that's a really important distinction too. A syndrome basically means a collection of symptoms and that tend to show up together, but it can look really different from person to person. That's why PCOS is sometimes called a spectrum disorder. Some people have acne and hair growth, others have infertility, and some people have no cysts at all. Some people are thin with PCOS, others gain weight really easily, and it's just truly not a one-size-fits-all diagnosis, just like endometriosis and just like a lot of other chronic illnesses. PCOS is often diagnosed based on something called the Rotterdam criteria, and to meet that criteria, you have to have at least two of the following of these three things. One, irregular or absent periods, aka you're not ovulating regularly. Two, signs of high androgens. This could be facial hair, acne, hair thinning, or high testosterone on labs. Or three, polycystic ovaries on your ultrasound. And this usually means that the ovaries have more than 12 small follicles and or they appear enlarged. So technically, you could have irregular periods and high androgens without any cysts, which I think I kind of fall more in that bucket, and you'd still be diagnosed. That's why a lot of people are confused or even misdiagnosed for years. Or if you're like me, you just literally don't believe your diagnosis. So, another myth that I want to bust is that PCOS is just a reproductive issue. Yes, it can affect ovulation and fertility, but it's actually a metabolic and hormonal disorder. That means it can affect how your body uses insulin and how your body stores fat and your stress response and your inflammation levels and your gut health. PCOS can increase your risk for things like insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, heart disease, depression, and even endometrial cancer. So, when providers act like birth control is the only solution, that's missing a really big part of the picture. Managing PCOS isn't just about regulating cycles, it's about treating the root cause, which can look very different depending on the person. For me, we're looking at a metabolic issue. I always thought that PCOS was just about having cysts and gaining weight, but once I learned it was actually about hormonal imbalances and how my body processes insulin and stress, things finally started to click a little bit more. It helped me shift my mind from fixing my period to actually supporting my whole body as a system. Like I said, there are four root types of PCOS. You can have the same diagnosis, but totally different underlying causes. That's why, again, what works for one person does not work for everyone. The most common type of PCOS is driven by insulin resistance, which means your cells become less responsive to insulin. As a result, your body pumps out more insulin to compensate. Excess insulin stimulates the ovaries to produce more androgens like testosterone, which can disrupt ovulation and trigger PCOS symptoms. So, common symptoms of insulin resistance based PCOS is weight gain, especially around the abdomen, intense carb cravings, which are also sugars, skin tags, usually on the neck or underarms, darkened patches of skin, fatigue, brain fog, all of those things, irregular or absent periods, and fertility struggles. So, the science behind this root cause is that chronically elevated insulin affects the theca cells in the ovaries, causing them to overproduce androgens. And insulin resistance can also reduce sex hormone binding globulin, also SHBG, leaving more free testosterone in circulation. This type of PCOS is strongly linked to metabolic syndrome and increased risk of type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Labs that I would suggest asking your primary provider for would be a fasting insulin, a fasting glucose, your hemoglobin A1C, free testosterone, and also there's an insulin resistance marker. It's called HOMA-IR. This stuff is also going to be on the Substack if you want more detailed out. Some ways that you could support this type of PCOS. Again, this is not medical advice. This is my own research and experience. Prioritizing blood sugar balance, I think, is the biggest thing for this type of PCOS, which is my main goal for this, which would include high protein, high fiber meals, and fewer refined carbs. I'm not saying cut out all your carbs. Also, talk to your doctor. but fewer refined carbs. Also incorporating resistance training and gentle movement. Supplements that are often studied with this type of PCOS is berberine, magnesium, and chromium. And then also reduce eating frequency. So try having balanced meals versus snacking all day to improve your insulin sensitivity. For me, this one was really big. I didn't realize how much my sugar crashes after eating or constant cravings were a sign of something bigger going on. I started to eat more of a blood sugar balanced diet and have noticed some improvements. But again, I'm kind of at the beginning of really honing in on this. Like I said, my dietitian and I are still working on like actual meals, so I'll update you how this goes. The second type of PCOS is inflammatory PCOS, which is often driven by chronic systemic inflammation. As we know, inflammation can disrupt ovulation, stimulate adrenal and ovarian androgen production, and even worsen insulin resistance. Common symptoms would be fatigue that is not relieved by rest, joint or muscle pain, frequent bloating or IBS symptoms, eczema, rashes, or histamine reactions, brain fog or mood swings, and elevated C-reactive protein or other inflammatory markers. The science behind this is that chronic inflammation can activate your hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis and increase adrenal output of DHEAS. It also interferes with insulin signaling and can promote both insulin resistance and anovulation. Gut dysbiosis, food insensitivities, environmental toxins, or unresolved infections can also be underlying drivers, or any other chronic illness. So, a lot of people with endometriosis, you have chronic inflammation, may also have this type of PCOS. Labs that I would ask your provider for are high sensitivity CRP. That's basically an inflammatory marker. ESR is an erythrocyte sedimentation rate. This is red blood cells. DHEAS and food sensitivity or stool testing, which is a type of functional labs. This could show up differently for people. These individuals may not have overt insulin issues, and their testosterone might be mildly elevated or actually normal, and they may feel generally unwell or inflamed without clear metabolic signs. So these labs could come back really like on the, more normal side, but people could still generally inflamed and unwell. It frequently pairs with other autoimmune or chronic illnesses, like I said before. Some lifestyle and support tools for this type would be focusing on anti-inflammatory nutrition like omega-3s, turmeric, leafy greens, and berries, and remove inflammatory triggers like processed foods and other foods that you're sensitive to. Also supporting gut health, so GI testing to figure out what your gut health is looking at. You could also consider probiotics or fermented foods. And then lowering your exposure to environmental toxins and endocrine disruptors, which I think most people should do in general. But it's also really difficult. I've been slowly trying to transition to more endocrine or to more things that are not endocrine disruptors, but a lot of times those things are more expensive. So it is a struggle. This type of PCOS resonates with me a lot. I've dealt with chronic inflammation from endo for a very long time, and I do think it's all connected. Like my body is just always in this low grade fight mode. Type 3 is typically after stopping hormonal birth control. So this type can show up in people who stop hormonal birth control, especially an oral contraceptive. The body experiences a temporary androgen rebound and can mimic PCOS symptoms, but it often resolves over time. So common symptoms for this would be irregular or missing periods after stopping hormonal contraception, acne flare-ups, especially on the jawline, chest, and back, oily skin, hair loss, facial hair growth. Also would have usually normal blood sugar and metabolic markers. The root cause science behind this is that birth control suppresses LH and FSH, which flattens normal hormone production. So when you stop, the ovaries can overcompensate, and this increases androgen production, kind of mimicking PCOS symptoms. And in some people, this dysregulation temporarily mimics PCOS, but usually means that it's not a long-term syndrome. Some labs that you could ask for would be total and free testosterone, LH and FH, LH to FSH ratio, which can temporarily be skewed, AMH, which can be elevated post-pill but doesn't necessarily indicate PCOS. This one's a little bit trickier for labs. It can show up differently than other forms of PCOS because usually periods will return within 3 to 12 months, and symptoms often feel like a rebound from hormonal suppression. And usually ovulation will normalize on its own over time. Lifestyle and support tools for this would be give your body time. This one often resolves naturally, hopefully, usually, and support your liver. So cruciferous vegetables, hydration, electrolytes, gentle hormonal balancing with like food, sleep, cycle tracking, and then stress reduction, which is a hard one, but cortisol can worsen the rebound. The last type of PCOS is based on androgens. In this type, the adrenal glands, not the ovaries, are producing high levels of DHEAS, which is a type of androgen. It's usually triggered by chronic stress and dysregulation of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Some common symptoms are cystic acne, usually on the jawline, chin, back, and chest, and excess hair on the face or the body. You can also have hair thinning on the scalp, anxiety, irritability, major mood swings, irregular periods, but you're still ovulating, and then high DHEAS, but normal testosterone. The science behind this is that chronic activation of the stress response raises this androgen as a byproduct of cortisol production. So elevated androgens interfere with this HPO axis and can suppress ovulation. This type is often misdiagnosed because your testosterone levels are usually normal. Some labs that you can ask for are the DHEAS. This is the key one to look at for this. Cortisol, which could be looked at through a saliva or a Dutch test. I don't know. I haven't actually talked about the Dutch test before, but I've really been thinking about trying that for myself. But you can Google that. It's DUTCH test. Testosterone, you can look at total and free testosterone, and then osteoprogesterone. This is to confirm ovulation. This might show up differently than other types of PCOS because you typically will have normal glucose and insulin levels and usually will have a lean body type. Symptoms can also worsen with stress and improve with rest. And it also is usually cyclical, like with your period. Some tools to support yourself through this would be prioritizing nervous system regulation. So deep breathing, yoga, EFT, and therapy. Sleep is your best medicine here. Rest is your best medicine with this type of PCOS. Gentle movement over high intensity workouts. And of course, lowering caffeine, lowering screen time, especially before bedtime. This is really to prioritize this good sleep. If you're someone like me, if you're someone who's like, okay, I'm doing everything right and I still have acne, I still have irregular cycles, this could be your type. And I'll just say it, managing stress is not a luxury. It's a necessity when hormones are involved. Remember that this isn't a strict box that you have to fit into. You can have overlapped. In fact, many of us with PCOS do. I've had signs of insulin resistance, inflammation, and adrenal stress at different points. That's why the root cause exploration is super important and why the same treatment path doesn't work for everyone. My hope is that this episode helps you feel informed, empowered, and way less alone in the messiness of figuring out your hormones. Let's take a quick pause to shout out a brand that I truly love and use honestly almost every day. This episode is brought to you by Some Days. You've heard me talk about their products before, but honestly, when you're living with PCOS, endo, or any chronic pain, the right tools make a huge difference. Some Days makes body care that is actually designed for period pain. although you don't have to use it just for period pain, but they did create it with that in mind. This stuff goes beyond the basics. My personal favorites, the cramp cream. It's both calming for my uterus, but also brings back that physical touch to areas that I honestly just avoid looking at and avoid touching because of my endo. I also use the castor oil pack almost every week, especially when I'm feeling inflamed or having digestive flares. It's easy to use, not messy like typical castor oil packs. Oh my God, and don't even get me started on the hot spell. I love the hot spell. It's like a whole nervous system reset in a bath. Hot baths have always been my favorite go-to for pain relief, and adding in the hot spell is just like chef kiss. If you want to try them out, you can use code Chronic Chronicles at checkout for a discount. That's code Chronic Chronicles at checkout. Supporting some days means supporting companies that actually care about people with period pain. I love that. I love that we can both support a company that cares about us while they're supporting a community that cares about them. Now that we've talked about the root causes of PCOS and how symptoms can differ, different types of labs that you can ask for, and then also different ways that you can support your body through those different types of PCOS, I want to talk about some of the things that actually help me manage my PCOS. Things that I've tried, things that I've stuck with, and also things that I've had to unlearn along the way. And I just want to say first that this is all just my experience. PCOS is so individual, and what works for me may not work for you. My hope is that sharing what's helped me might spark some ideas or maybe some encouragement for you. One of the biggest game changers for me was realizing how connected PCOS is to blood sugar, even when you don't think you have insulin resistance. I used to skip breakfast, I still do a lot of times, and just have coffee. But like I said, I've been implementing a protein coffee, which helps a little bit. I need to be better about actually having a full balanced breakfast, but like for now, baby steps. But when I was just having like an actual coffee before and no breakfast, I usually have a mid-morning crash and then crave sugar all day. Now I'm really intentional about starting the day with at least protein, and I have noticed that even that is beneficial. I'm not craving as much sugar mid-morning or having a crash mid-morning. I would really like to be more intentional about starting the day with like protein, fiber, and fat with no carbs. Well, no naked carbs, I should say. But again, baby steps. It's really hard for me to go like 0 to 100. So just like it might be hard for you to do that. Some things that have helped me when I actually am on top of things with breakfast are an egg scramble with veggies or a Greek yogurt with chia seeds, flax seeds, and berries. I also add a little bit of granola because I like granola, and walking after meals. I said this earlier, but even if I normally do a longer like 30-minute to 60-minute. I normally do a longer like 30 to 45 minute, and if I can get an hour in at lunch, I love that, but usually it's 30 to 45 minutes. I will do an after lunch walk. That's like my long walk for the day. Even after breakfast or after dinner, I at least go outside and walk 5 to 15 minutes like around my apartment complex. This has helped so much with digestion, bloating, and blood sugar spikes. Also, keeping high protein snacks nearby so I don't end up grabbing junk when I'm hungry. For me, and probably anyone else with a chronic illness, I need things that aren't going to take me a very long time. So, like food prep and having high protein snacks that are just like easy for me to like grab and go, even though I work from home and I should be able to just like make something. I my brain is in a million spots, and sometimes I'm in pain, so I don't have the energy to do that. So yeah, planning is a huge thing. I try to follow a loose 80-20 approach, mostly whole foods, but I'm human and I still enjoy fun meals. And I never want my life to feel like a punishment. And I'm still like very, very human. So I really try to follow a loose 80-20, but I'm going to be very honest with you guys. It's usually a 60-40 approach. So hopefully we can work up from the 60-40 to 70-30, and then 80-20, and just then it will be habit, but everything takes time. One thing I gave up was the all or nothing mindset, which is a really hard thing for me to give up because I think that I am kind of a perfectionist, and I feel like if I can't do it perfectly, then I shouldn't do it at all, but that's just not how life works. So that has been something I've been giving up and talking about a lot in therapy. So giving up this all or nothing mindset, PCOS doesn't need a perfect diet. It just needs a supportive one. It just needs more healthy, more whole foods, more protein, reduced sugar. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Exercise used to be all or nothing for me. I thought that I needed to do like a high intensity workout to lose weight or to feel like I'm actually being productive with my workouts. But honestly, that always left me feeling drained, inflamed, and more bloated, and then not able to work out the next day. So, walking has been the best thing that I could do. Granted, sometimes I am in an endo flare and it's really hard to go on a walk, or my back hurts and it's really hard to go on a walk. So, give yourself grace. But I do think walking is like the most supportive thing you could do for your body when you have a chronic illness in general. Now I focus on long walks, ideally 30 to 45 minutes, no pressure to go fast. I walk pretty slow most of the time. Gentle yoga, gentle stressing, gentle yoga, gentle stretching. I try to stretch every day, but again, full transparency. Some days I don't. Some days I am in pain and I'm tired and I can't do it. But even if I can get just like 3 minutes of stretching right before I go to bed, that is enough for me. That is good. I have also been trying to implement strength training at least twice a week, which is hard to do, but implementing some low reps, low weight, even body weight sometimes, just body weight, which is fine. Strength training to just try to get that in. I said that I've been tracking my symptoms more and really trying to be on top of that. It is very hard for me to actually track my cycle because, PCOS and endo and having an IUD, like I really just don't know what's going on in my body a lot of times, but I feel like I have been able to at least know when I'm in my luteal phase. I've keyed in on some of those symptoms. So, I've been trying to do some cycle syncing to my workouts to just give myself the best ability, I guess. And when I know that I'm in my luteal phase based off of the symptoms that I usually get in my luteal phase, then I know that I'm exhausted. I don't push it. I just really am trying to trust my body's feedback, and tracking symptoms has been a really big thing for that. Some things that are part of my favorite regular PCOS support routine are the Some Days Castor Oil Pack, which I talked about earlier. I put this over my liver and my ovaries and then sleep in it. I do this at least once a week, sometimes more than that, but it really just depends, like how productive I'm being the night before, really. Pure Spectrum CBD salve. Love Pure Spectrum CBD salve. Love it. For flare days, I definitely use that. But even normally before I go out on my walk, because I have a lot of lower back pain from my spondy, which I haven't really talked about much. I will talk about that more at some point, but I got that diagnosis back in January and I still have just been trying to figure out exactly what that means for me. So haven't really wanted to broach that topic, but I have a lot of lower back pain, a lot. So I normally put on the Pure Spectrum CBD salve on my lower back where my spondy is before I go out on my long walks because that is normally what's hurting me on my walks. So I try to put that on for some extra support before I go out. And then I've talked about the hot spell, soak in a hot bath. I love that. That is very supportive to me. And again, my daily walk with a podcast. I love Prologues by Mary Skinner. I also love the Mel Robbins podcast. But if anyone else, I sometimes I listen to true crime, but I kind of scare myself. So it's a rarity that I listen to Crime Junkie. But if you guys have like podcasts that you love, let me know. Let me know. And then again, tracking my symptoms, tracking symptoms, tracking symptoms. That has really helped me try to figure stuff out. All of this is a work in progress. Some weeks I feel really in sync with my body, and other weeks I'm like, what the actual hell is happening? And that's okay. PCOS doesn't have a quick fix, just like any other chronic illness. There's just not a quick fix, and that's just the reality of our lives, you know? But what I do know is that I feel better when I support my blood sugar, I manage my stress, I get good quality sleep, and I stop trying to force my body into a mold that it was never meant to fit. So if you're navigating this too, I just want to say to you that you're not alone and your body is worthy of support and compassion every step of the way. All right. It's time for a little rapid fire myth busting because PCOS is full of misinformation, and I don't know who needs to hear this, but let's clear some stuff up real quick. One, you can't have PCOS if you're thin. False. Yes, absolutely. You can have PCOS at any body size. This is one of the most harmful myths out there. There's something called lean PCOS, and it's underdiagnosed because many doctors still associate PCOS with weight gain. You can be lean and still have insulin resistance, androgen excess, inflammation, irregular periods, literally all of the same symptoms. Thin people deserve care, and so do people in larger bodies. PCOS is not a weight issue, it is a hormonal and metabolic disorder. Myth number two, you have to have cysts on your ovaries to have PCOS. Also, false. Remember the criteria? You only need two of the following. You don't need cysts, technically. Birth control is the only treatment. Not necessarily. Birth control can help manage some symptoms, just like regulating periods or reducing androgen levels, but it does not treat the root cause of PCOS. PCOS is only a fertility issue. No, PCOS affects your whole body, from your metabolic state to mental health. Even if you never want kids, it still deserves proper care and support. Another myth is all PCOS is the same. And no, we've talked about this. Different types, different root causes. Ugh, this myth bothers me. You just need to lose weight. Weight loss is not a treatment plan. For many of us, it's a side effect of addressing root causes. But also, some of us don't need to lose weight, and that doesn't mean that we're failing. If any of those myths made you pause and go, wait, what? You're not alone. PCOS is complicated, it's misunderstood, and also under-researched. But knowledge is power, and the more that we talk about it, the more educated that you get about it, and the more that we break these myths, the more we can advocate for what we actually deserve. If you're navigating PCOS right now, I just want you to know that you're not alone and you're not broken. You are worthy. You are worthy of education. You are worthy of good treatment plans. And whether you relate to the metabolic symptoms, the post-pill rebound, or a mix of everything, kind of like I do, there is hope and there is support. If this episode spoke to you, please share it with somebody who needs to hear it, or tag me on Instagram at Chronic Chronicles Pod. I'd love to hear your story. Linked in the show notes are some of the articles that are included in my research for this episode. But also, if you want to see a full list of that, please go look on the Substack, which I will also link in the show notes. The Substack is going to have a summarized version of these things and more research. Okay. I will see you next week. Bye.